Welcome back to the Business Immigration Benchmark, where we chat all things immigration trends, challenges, and insights, largely based on our benchmarking, which is why I have Sydney Bridger here, WR's community manager, who runs the Benchmarking Collective and is here to tell us about Q2 benchmarking survey, navigating global compliance. Sydney, what do we have in store for this quarter's benchmarking survey?
Right. So I am really excited for this next survey. It's on navigating US and global compliance, and it will be fielded through May 9th. We'll have about a month to field responses, but I really gauge the global mobility community in terms of what was top of mind. Of course, there's so many things top of mind right now with the current administration and everything going on, but compliance was the most popular. And I think it hits both the US and the global perspective. So combining that into one and having a more holistic approach to compliance, I'm really excited about it. So thanks for having me, Laura.
I saw about 2 weeks ago you put out a pulse survey in the benchmarking collective, kinda taking stock in what folks were interested in, and to your point, compliance came out as number 1. Second was green card sponsorships, which is interesting, and maybe that's a highlight or a sneak peek for Q3, and then leveraging technology. So, yeah, I know in my conversations with clients and at your community events, people are really focused on compliance. And are there any themes that we're gonna get out of this survey or questions that you were influenced to put in the survey?
Yeah. So when you think about compliance, it's a little daunting, and sometimes teams don't know where to start. So when I was thinking about the survey and drafting the survey, I try to take a step back in terms of baby steps. So, what I mean by that is really thinking about okay, for teams, how often do you audit? Are you thinking about changing your policy? What does that look like? Are you tracking visa expirations? What type of trainings are you giving to folks? And that includes HR and managers. It even includes some questions about travel and consulate wait time. So, thinking about it more holistically, but then breaking it down. So, if you're assessing your program, figuring out where to start and what makes sense for you. And it would be great to benchmark this with other teams because I feel like each team is a little bit different in the way they do or they run their compliance program. Just breaking it down step by step.
Yeah, that's what I got. Sydney, thank you for giving me a quick preview of all the questions. And as I was clicking through and seeing what all those questions are, one, it definitely gave me a insight into if you didn't have a compliance plan for the year, this survey kind of tracks in a bite-sized way, thoughts about how you could break it down, like, it kind of is leading in that, like, are you doing trainings? Are you doing I-9 audit? Are you doing public access file audit? And it could really almost tee up like a structure for your program. Hopefully, it doesn't give you anxiety if you're not or you don't have a plan in place, but rather thinking of it as a structure for where you could be heading and taking bite-sized pieces towards that. I also thought it would prompt really good questions that, I'll be using with my clients about who owns what process. I have a few clients that I've onboarded and then have recently had some turnover on their team, so new global mobility leaders, and I thought it was excellent in the questions that it prompts about who is owning the ultimate responsibility for extensions or who is owning the ultimate responsibility for expirations. And I'll give you an example of why that prompts a really good question. I have many clients that do not file the F1 STEM EADs, that is a responsibility of the F1 employee, and rightfully so. It doesn't require employer sponsorship. But I wonder, with especially some new leaders coming into these programs, how is that being communicated? Is that being communicated to those employees? Because many of these F1s are not familiar with what they are accountable for. And so I wonder, has the company expressed what the F1 is accountable for? So it's even prompting or will prompt for me some really great conversations with my clients and that I hope that, we'll get a lot of, good conversation at your community events. Can you tell us a little bit about how community events are going from Q1 surveys and what you expect for this one in Q2?
Yeah, so our Q1 survey was on communication and change management. We had our first roundtable in Chicago this year, our first in person roundtable, I should say. We've had lots of virtual ones, so there'll be more coming via Zoom in the next few weeks. But the first one in person, which was wonderful, the attendees got a sneak peek of the communication and change management survey before we even released it. So it was really, really cool and fulfilling to see our insights come to light and have teams really take away the data. And not only is it just data, it's more qualitative data of like, okay, this is what teams are saying. How can I implement that to help my team? So, our Q2 survey will be on US and global compliance, in which we're launching at our New York corporate roundtable, which is coming up. So, all good things to come. Yeah, really excited to see the results.
Can't wait to hear about that in-person event in New York, and then, yeah, you'll be back on to tell us the results of this survey, but I think the important thing is that this'll measure how people are performing audits. Because I get questions about, like, what's the report of if I'm compliant or not? And that the report really is about audits, and are you representing in your immigration petitions, in your I-9 records, in your public access files? Are they in order? Are they compliant with the retention requirements, with the substantive fields being completed? And there's not a report that your immigration vendor or frankly you from your HR system can just say, "Yes, we're compliant," right? Like it actually takes a tremendous amount of work to do the audits. So if you're starting out for the first time, that can feel super overwhelming, but hopefully these conversations are a gut check, a benchmark into what are other people doing? How frequently are they doing? Are you meeting the mark? Do you have some work to do, right? And how are teams accomplishing some of those audits with maybe limited woman power or limited resources, those types of things.
Yeah, because a lot of the teams we meet with, I was just at the Philadelphia Relocation Council Summit yesterday, and I think I met 3 people there just alone that were one-person teams. So, how do you manage all of that? Compliance itself is a huge project, right? So, managing that day to day with everything else going on, it's a lot. So, as much as you can leverage technology, take benchmarking from other teams of what's working well, and again, attending these roundtables, these networking events. I actually met someone who was just at our last virtual roundtable, and she was there yesterday. I was like, "Oh my gosh, so nice to meet you." It was wonderful. And so just meeting those
Amazing.
people in person is just yeah, and she told me how much she loved the benchmarking. She found out about relocation councils through the benchmarking program too. So it's really, really great, and I cannot encourage it enough. Just sitting there to listen, and taking in the ideas.
Well, that's a really great call to action. So, for our listeners here, if you haven't already, join the Benchmarking Collective and take a crack at the Q2 Navigating Global Compliance survey that will be out by the time this episode airs, and connect with Sydney live in the wild at conferences.
Please,
So,
yes. Yes, I know 'cause conferences sometimes can be intimidating, right? Especially if you don't know anyone, but having someone you've met in a virtual roundtable is it's just really nice. Like, okay, like, I'm not alone. Not that you are, you're with people in your industry,
for sure.
but it is nice to have a connection.
Yeah, and a comment on a previous conversation that y'all had. Yeah, friendly bunch. I think you create a really warm, collaborative environment. So again, if you haven't already, check out the Benchmarking Collective. I know Sydney's active on LinkedIn. So if you're not sure where to find that, just ping her on LinkedIn. She'll get you connected, get you hooked up with the survey. And then tell our listeners also when you complete the survey, what else do you get?
You do get a swanky detailed benchmarking report. So I called these reports my babies just because I am so proud of them, but it is very detailed. If you ever have any questions about the data as well, you feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to set up one on one time with you. But yes, you will receive a detailed benchmarking report. And also, as part of the collective, we have opportunities for the roundtables that we were just talking about.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a wrap on, highlighting the Q2 Navigating Global Compliance survey. Thank you, Sydney, for telling us about it. And we'll have you back on to break down the results in a month or so when you dive into those.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Sydney.
Thanks for having me.
Catch you next time on the Business Immigration Benchmark.